Something is seriously wrong with One Piece right now, and if these hints and early spoilers for chapter 1171 are real, then Oda just pulled the biggest narrative switch we've seen in years. Because this chapter doesn't just move the story forward, it flips the entire meaning of Elbaf, Loki, and the final saga on its head. And most people haven't realized it yet. Because this is not just about a flashback ending. This is not just about Loki being freed. This is not just about ice powers or mythology. This is about Oda setting up the next god of this story. And if I'm right, then Loki isn't just dangerous. He's the exact opposite of Mika. And that changes everything. First, let's lock in what we now know. Multiple leakers have confirmed that chapter 1171 marks the definitive end of King Harold's flashback and Joy Boy's past. That means we are finally returning to the present timeline in Elbaf, and that alone is huge, because Oda never ends a massive historical flashback without triggering something enormous in the present. Ever. That's his pattern. He gives us context, then he drops consequences. And those consequences are about to hit Loki. Because the first major hint shows shackles breaking. Not metaphorical, not symbolic, literal chains breaking. And this matters because Luffy already freed Loki's arms, but his legs were still bound. He wasn't truly free yet. That was intentional. Oda doesn't do partial releases for nothing. This is the full release. Loki is about to walk, and the giants imprisoned him for a reason. Think about that for a second. The giants of Elbaf, the strongest race in the world, the people who worship strength, honor, and battle, chose to imprison their own prince. That alone tells you Loki isn't just rebellious or misunderstood. He's catastrophic. And now Luffy, the man who frees slaves, breaks chains, and shatters systems, is about to release the most dangerous being on the island. Not because he's stupid, but because that's who Luffy is. He doesn't judge people by history. He judges them by what they do in front of him. And that's terrifying. Now here's where it gets insane. The second hint shows Luffy and Loki greeting each other, and another leaker describes an image of two people hugging like brothers. That's not random. Oda doesn't waste emotional framing. This isn't neutral. This is bonding. This is connection. This is Luffy doing what he always does, seeing something in someone that the world refuses to see. Zoro, Robin, Law, Katakuri. Every time this happens, it's not coincidence. It's setup. And now people are asking the dangerous question. Is Loki about to become an ally? Or worse, is he about to become family? And if that wasn't enough, we get the most brain-melting hint of them all. A massive glacier with the word Niflheim written across it. That is not aesthetic. That is not random. That is not cute mythology flavor. Niflheim is the realm of primordial ice, the world of mist, the opposite of fire. In Norse cosmology, Niflheim and Muspelheim, the realm of flame, are what create reality itself when they collide. Cold and heat, ice and fire, darkness and light. Sound familiar? Because Luffy is literally the sun god, and now Oda is introducing the concept of a primordial ice realm. You see where this is going? This recontextualizes everything about Loki. The freezing hints, the frozen giants on Punk Hazard, the idea that Loki is too dangerous to roam free, the references to mist, cold, and imprisonment. What if Loki doesn't just have ice powers? What if Loki represents the opposite of Nika? Not just in ability, but in concept. Luffy is freedom, laughter, warmth, light, movement. What if Loki is stillness, cold, silence, darkness, imprisonment? What if Oda is building a divine duality? Not good versus evil, but liberation versus stasis, sun versus frost, Nika versus Niflheim. And now it gets worse, because one of the earliest hints showed an old man freezing, and people thought it was symbolic or metaphorical, or just a funny illustration. But now it lines up. What if Loki doesn't just freeze bodies? What if he freezes time? What if he freezes history? What if he freezes people in moments? And suddenly, Punk Hazard makes sense. Suddenly, the frozen giants make sense. Suddenly, Loki being imprisoned makes sense. Not because he's violent, but because he can stop the world. Now let's talk about the Emu Bomb, because one of the biggest pre-spoiler tips claims Emu directly references Elbaf and the Clan of D in the same breath. That is not small. That is seismic. Emu does not speak casually. Every word is deliberate. Every appearance is a warning. If Emu is now talking about Elbaf and D together, then the giants know something they were never supposed to know. And suddenly, Loki being imprisoned looks a lot less like punishment, and a lot more like containment. Now imagine this. Joy Boy represented freedom. Nika embodied liberation. The Clan of D are the enemies of the gods. What if Loki represents the opposite principle? What if he isn't evil? What if he is necessary? What if he is the force that balances Nika? And what if the world government is terrified of him for the same reason they fear Joy Boy? Because both can rewrite the world, just in different ways. And now here's the final terrifying thought. Luffy is freeing him, not knowing what he is, not knowing what he represents, not knowing what he could become. Because Luffy doesn't free people based on outcomes. He frees them based on principle. And that's what makes him dangerous. So now we are standing at the edge of something huge. The flashback is over. The present is back. Loki is about to walk free. Emu is watching. The Clan of D is being invoked. Primordial mythology is entering the story. And One Piece is no longer just about pirates. It's about gods. And that's why chapter 1171 might not just be a good chapter. It might be the chapter where the final saga truly begins. Not with a war, not with a death, but with a chain breaking.